All right, cool. So we're going to go ahead and get started. As Jason mentioned, tonight I wanted to talk to you all about a JavaScript feature called Intl. Has anyone used this before? No one? Some people have heard of it? Cool. That's great. This will hopefully be a very useful talk then.
Bigger text though.
Bigger text. Better?
Yeah.
Cool. So Intl is a global object or a global feature to JavaScript similar to like math, right? So you just access it like that, like math.random, right? And you use that. Intl is used the same way, just like that. And then it has certain methods on it, which are going to be constructors. So the first one I wanted to share is for list formatting. So if we have something like this, and we have a list of things, and we want to output it in a way that looks like just a string that says this, comma, that, comma, and the other. So if you can see here, what's going on is we're converting an array of strings to a comma-separated list where the last item in the list also has an and before it. So really quick, I just want to show how you might do that in a function. You might say function format accepts an array, and what am I doing? Let's do const format equals a function that accepts an array, right? This is the array. And then we're going to say the last item equals array dot pop, and that's going to remove the last item from the array and assign it to last item. And then we can return array dot join with a comma and a space plus use backticks and say, what do we have? We have the space already, so we can say and last item, right? And so this should take the array and kind of like make a string that joins the other ones and appends last item. Does that make sense to everyone? If I can test this, we can say, or actually console log that, I think. Format list, no, just format, pass in our list. I'm going to take this guy out and this guy out. And if I run that, oh, I missed a space. There we go. And if we run that, cool. This, that, oh man, I missed a comma. And if we run that, we get the expected results, right? So this is great. What happens though if the array is empty? What happens if, well, basically, what happens if we have one item in the array, right? We have to add some logic in here that's going to say, well, if the array is empty, we're just going to return early, and just maybe return an empty string. If we have an array with one item, this is going to pop that item off, and then we're just going to return a string, right? So let me just show what that looks like, right? Is this guy, and this is no longer relevant. All of a sudden, our awesome formatting string or our formatting function is broken. So you can go and like add all the logic in here and write a nice robust little function that handles all that, or you can I've got to undo all this stuff. Cool, we still want that. We can get rid of our function, and we can say this. We can import it, and I'm just going to give you a heads up that this is actually going to break. There we go. So this is going to break because it's not supported in this version of Node. So currently, just heads up, this is only supported in Chrome 72, but I'm going to give you a sneak peek at what that looks like anyway. The way you would actually implement this is you use the intl list format constructor. You're going to pass it some sort of locale. So we are in the US, so I'm using English-US. A nice feature about this like locale thing is you can actually, there's a way for browsers to detect what the user's locale is, and we'll give you this so you don't have to hard code that in. And then you're going to give it some options to work with, which this is not how I want that to look. There we go. No, that's not it. Okay, cool. You're going to give it an object with some sort of configuration that you want to pass in. And it accepts a few different things. And what it's going to give you back is it's going to format that string for you exactly how we described it. So, well, this is not, but the formatter.format method is going to handle that for you. So just to give an example, I'm going to open this up in the actual Chrome browser, or browser console, and I'm going to say, I'm going to copy in my function, or my constructor. I'm going to copy in my list, and then I'm going to log what the formatter.format actually outputs. This, that, and the other. So for those of you that haven't seen this before, this is a really awesome way that's built into the browser. We can probably suspect that in Node, some future version of Node, this will also be supported on the server. This is way less code and just like built in, so you don't have to use a library, you don't have to like add to your bundle and load things. Cool? Yes? No? Yes? Cool. Great.
So I saw a couple of options in there. Can you go back to the file? So style long, type conjunction. What are some of the other options we have available to us?
I mean, I'm going to go ahead and just look up, because here we go. It's kind of a lot of options. So again, it's going to ask you what the locale is, and then some of the options that it can take are I passed it. Conjunction or disjunction is going to show basically be the difference on like whether or not it's going to have that last comma in there. You can also have the style is narrow and it doesn't include the commas or the string. And you can see like, I think that's German, and it'll say Oder, which I'm not sure. I can't confirm that. But if we have any German speaking, what? Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know if this also means and. I'm going to assume that it does, which is really cool because then you get like nice internationalization language features in there, which is, huh?
It said disjunction.
Disjunction, yeah. That makes more sense. Or, not and.
So there's conjunction, there's disjunction.
Yeah, and then, yeah, again, like I can't get my tab back. I didn't look through the options too strictly, but I would say like if you're doing something with lists, I just kind of want to show that this is available, and then go and head over to MDN to see exactly how like robust it can be. So we're gonna log that one or comment that one out because that obviously is going to break the rest of our code. But the rest we can bring in, right? So the next one I want to show off is formatting numbers. So it's I'd say it's pretty common to have to take a number and show it in currency is a good example. And then the next question, you can take this number and you can say, well, let's say like, should I do a function? I don't know. I'm not gonna actually write the function, but what you would do is basically take this number, like convert it to a string, find out where the comma should be, and then slap a $sign on the front, right? And then all of a sudden your application gets huge, and you get international users, and you get someone from Great Britain that's like, hey, that comma's in the wrong place, and it should, or I guess they use commas in the same place that we use them.
But in mainland Europe, they swap the periods in the commas.
Yeah, so some places you're going to have like this should be a comma and this should be a period, and then you're going to have to deal with the symbols for the currency, euros, pounds, whatever. So this is another good example where you might reach for a library, but we actually have baked into the browser a new tool that can handle that for us. So if I look at the number formatter, again, it's going to look pretty similar. Let me see if I can, stretch this out. So, how much code, I shouldn't even have showed this, but how much code do you think it would have taken to actually write a robust thing that can take, the country that it's coming from and display it in a nice user-friendly way with the currency prefix and the dollars or the commas and the periods in the right format?
Wait, does it do conversion as well?
Like currency conversion?
Yeah.
No, because that you need real time.
Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing that would realistically consistently do that. But you could talk to a conversion rate API and get the number and give them like the pennies that in US dollar and get back whatever the currency is, and then present that in a nice user-friendly way with euros or whatever we said. So again, it's like almost no code at all. And I can't even express how robust this is compared to having to write your own or reaching out for a library and, punishing your user by making them download a larger bundle. So let's look at what that looks like, right? We have US dollars, right? And we get the comma and we get the decimal. And if we had this, right, we wanted to show it in US dollars, we might have to append zeros. Or if this was like a 0.1, then you'd have to do that annoying thing where you say, well, it's not 0.1, it's 0.10 because it's 10 cents, right? Not a problem. It's really cool. We can look at, if I change this, what is it, Great Britain? That's not right. Oh, no, sorry. That was right. Great British Pound. GBP? There you go. If we do negative numbers, I actually didn't test that, and I think it would give you a negative before the number. Yeah. So what happens if we do this? I think it's going to round it. There you go. So that is really sweet. No more bundle bloat or headachy code. And if that didn't blow your socks off, if any of you are standing up, you better sit down for this one. What's up, Tristan?
I know that for some, I think for banks, they don't store the money you have as an actual decimal. So if it's the number's 1,000, you actually have $10. Do you know if there's a way that it can interpret if you give it 1,000, that it converts 10?
Yeah. I mean, one thing I would warn against is so this is a good question because Stripe does this, right? When you say when you have a product in Stripe and you're saying that it's like $5, right? The API is going to actually return to you 500 cents. And the reason it does this is because JavaScript, because once you get into working with currencies, like multiplication and division can lead to floating point values. Exactly. So it's a convenient method for managing currencies. If any of you are doing that, you probably should get in the practice of using cents or the whatever currency, like the least common what's the word? Denomination. Yeah. Also, understand that JavaScript does have some math issues. So you probably don't want to. You probably want to write some sort of disclaimer on your front end. Like you shouldn't be doing conversions on your front end or like too much math with currency on your front end, because if you get into the point where you're displaying the wrong value, you're gonna have some angry customers. Just a tip. Okay, cool. So the last one, again, you better sit down for this one, is dates. Has anyone here worked with dates in JavaScript? Nice. Is it fun? No. It's not so bad. I mean, the date constructor is pretty good, I think. And so you might get something like this. This is just this isn't an Easter egg. It's just a random date. I think it's July 13th. Nothing relevant there. But we can do a lot of things with the date object. But it hits its limits pretty quickly depending on what you need to do. So you might reach for a library like Moment.js. I think a lot of people do that. And let's say like we wanted to output it. We wanted to take our date. Well, let's just like console log the date, right? And that's going to give us, this is what the date string kind of looks like by default. And if we wanted it to look like, ideal output is, what is it, Joule? Actually, let me look in the actual console. Right, so this is what it might look like if we just create a new date for using the date constructor, right? We get webjul 24/2019, right? So if we wanted to actually spell out July or whatever, we want it in a format that's a little bit more user friendly, and we want it to say July 24 or whatever the date is, 2019, right? A little bit nicer for users to read. We might reach for a library like Moment.js. And what Moment.js will give us is, I'm just going to give the example. It's going to take a moment. It's going to accept the date that we're using. And then it's going to give us a function called format, where it's going to accept something like this. And actually, I'm going to put another M on there. And this will say, MMMM, not just tasty candies, but it represents the long format of a month. So it's going to spell it all the way out. September spells it the whole way out. MMM is the short version. It's just SEP period. The day, I think for this one, I would actually have like this and have just a 2-digit day, or if I wanted single digits, if it's a single digit. And then the year, I want to say a year is actually like that. And that's cool. Moment is a really excellent library. It makes it super easy to work with dates. However, it's also 235 kilobytes, something like that. And especially on the front end, that's a big impact. So what we're going to look at instead is, just log that out. Let's say we're going to have a function called format date. Yes, sweet. So easy, so clean. And if I run that, we get an error. Right. Format date. What is it complaining about? Format date is not defined. Huh. Get an error because we didn't include it. Cool. July 13th, 2019. There's a couple caveats I will say about this. First of all, I actually didn't write this function to accept the format. This is probably how I would recommend writing it, so that you can pass in a date and then accept any format. The function itself, I'm going to just go ahead and say this is probably how I would do it, is actually construct the date so that you can accept like a string, for example. Would be cool. What I didn't do in this example is the formatting, right? is the MMMM, DD, YYYY. Those are all handled by these, again, INTL, date time format. You pass in the locale, and then you pass in some options on how it's going to handle or how it's going to format that. And then you just call formatter.format, and you pass in the date. So the issue with the datetime format is that it's not nearly as flexible as something like Moment.js. If you want to show things like this happened 3 days ago, or this will happen 1 month from now, or whatever, Moment can actually do that in like a relative time format. I think this does have relative time, or INTL does have relative time format, but it's not quite as robust as you would probably want. So it depends on your needs. If you do need like very robust date handling, I would recommend a library called date functions, which is date-functions. The formatter for this, it's much more like it's designed so you can import just the little features you need, not the whole library. And so the formatter for date functions was like 9 kilobytes versus Moment is 230 something. So that's it. It's a pretty cool feature for the browser, and I would recommend exploring it if you have to convert, well, not lists yet, but numbers or dates, and do it lightweight. Any questions? Yep.
You said it was available on Chrome 72. Is it available on any other browsers?
Yeah, so the support is going to depend based on which feature you're going to use. I think that I know the number one is available, has pretty good support. Again, I would recommend looking up MDN INTL. It's an excellent resource, and you have date time, number. There's also some other ones like pluralization, and again, the relative time format. I'll let you guys look at those. Plural rules is kind of weird. I feel like it's a bait and switch because it's not, kind of doesn't do the job that I would like it to do. But it's basically going to tell you whether something like the plural rule is going to accept a number. And basically, if it's a number 1, it'll tell you that it's a 1. And if not, it'll tell you that it's other. So I don't know. I feel like this one's not as, like, I could probably write something that's a little bit more, there's like another few things that it can do. Like, it'll tell you if it's 0, 1, 2, or a few, or many. Like, all right.
Well, when I scroll down, looks like it does ordinal stuff?
Yeah, so depending on like what order it's in, but this one like totally threw me off. That's not a 2.
That's weird.
Yeah. So that one, I don't know. There's a few other things that are worth looking into. The relative time format was the one I was talking about. That it'll say like you can actually tell it how many things away and what the units are, and it'll tell you, oh, this happens in 3 quarters. You can have it be like a narrow as quarters, or this happened 1 day ago. This one says it in Spanish, which is cool. So it's also really pretty robust, but I don't know. I feel like passing in a number, you'd have to do. You could build a really cool little utility library on top of this that could then handle because you'd have to do some math to figure out if it's months, and I only want to say how many months it is, and I can just like ignore how many weeks and how many days. Then you can do some math around that. What was I looking at? Oh yeah, support. The number format. The support is really good for numbers. It's almost everything. For the date time, I think it's also really good. A lot of the evergreen things, you're going to be just fine. So I wouldn't worry about date time and number format unless you have to support really old browsers. We had another question.
Not biggie, but on the numeric format, when you showed the negative, I was wondering about for accounting applications, they like that parentheses instead of your own number, and I didn't know. I was starting to Google and I didn't see it right away. I was wondering if you have that at all.
I don't know. I don't think it would support the parentheses, but I think you could really easily like do some logic to just add a negative sign in front. Yeah, that would be pretty easy. Any other questions? Last chance. I'm not going to talk to you after this. All right. Thank you very much.